Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to the Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
The weight of water is over. It is all that one can do to hang on to sanity.
Based on the #1 best-selling novel.
This is it?
2 women were discovered in the kitchen, strangled and bludgeoned with an axe.
She came to the island to do a story.
I think the killer was in love with one of the women.
So it's an act of passion.
About a murder that happened long ago.
I told my sister to run, but she said she was too tired.
Using an axe requires intimacy. Think about how close you have to be to your victim.
Now, secrets are surfacing.
I was thinking about what keeps people together.
So how did you two meet?
Desires are stirring.
When I told her to go and to look for help. Thomas!
What?
She said she could not.
And the truth
How did he know the women would be alone?
isn't the only thing
What's going on?
What's going on with you?
to fear.
Something's gonna happen.
From the director of K-19 Widowmaker and Strange Days, Academy Award nominee Sean Penn, Sarah Polley, Elizabeth Hurley, Catherine McCormack, and Josh Lucas. The Weight of Water.
There are times in your life when you sense that something is about to happen. And at the same time, you realize it already has.
Andy, this is again ostensibly a story about a journalist.
Yeah, it's kind of a photojournalist. Photojournalism.
It's not. This is not a journalist movie again.
Well,
Damn it.
okay. She's a magazine photographer and she's working on a photo essay. Doesn't that count? Like, where's the line? Where's the line? I say it counts. I say it counts more than our quote journalist in Merrily We Go to Hell.
Yeah, that's true. But in this journalist series, I mean, I expect, for crying out loud. All right. So we're doing this movie. It's part of our journalist series. And it gives us an excuse to bring back K-Biggs for our Kathryn Bigelow series, which, is always nice to fill in those holes. And that's how did we pick this movie? Because it was hard to find, Andy. I think there are exactly 3 copies of the DVD in circulation in the United States.
I was going to say the world. It seems pretty thin trying to track it down.
The whole reason I'm like really like this whole episode is just we've just crapped the bed because like nobody can see this movie. If you haven't seen this movie, you're not seeing this movie. Is all I'm saying.
It's an unfortunate, tricky one to find. I guess I don't think it's that strange considering the film, but but it is one of those things where, this is the sort of thing when people say, it's a movie made in this century and it's still almost impossible to track down.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the struggles that people have with the accessibility, which is great. There is a lot of accessibility right now, but there are still things out there that are just incredibly difficult to find, and this is one of them.
This is one of them. So, favorite part of the show, Andy. What do you think I thought of this movie?
Well, I wouldn't say that you liked it. How's that?
Okay, so this is the part where you just get to determine how gently I'm going to approach this movie for the next hour. Not gently, Andy. Spoiler.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think I don't think you loved it. I don't think you loved it, but I think you're going to be kinder to it than I am.
Interesting. Okay.
Maybe. All right. Let's see. Was it rated? Did anybody care?
This movie was rated R. Definitely rated R. It's got stuff in it. The rating is R because of violence, sexuality and nudity, and brief language.
It is brief.
Yes. You do see a buttock.
There's a buttock and a breast.
Yes.
Only one of each.
That's right. Hey, you want to watch this movie and help us out? Well, I'm not even going to do that.
Sorry.
Yep. Best of luck.
Pick if you see an Apple or Amazon link to any other movie on our site, go ahead and click it, but not this one because you won't.
No, if you want to buy a DVD copy of it on Amazon for a lot of money, you're more than welcome.
All right, but you can't get some merch. Oh, Lord knows what is it going to be for this movie? An axe, for sure. Probably a skull.
No. It has to involve smutty nose. There aren't enough shirts
smutty nose.
that say,
map.
I'm on my way to smutty
map.
nose.
You are absolutely right. If you need to find me, you can find me in smutty nose.
Yes.
You can find all of that at truestory.fm/TNR merch. Shirts, stickers, mugs, mask, pillows. We don't have parchment maps yet, but maybe we can talk to TeePublic about getting started with their official maps of Smutty Nose.
Parchment map line. Oh, dear. Yeah. We are featuring audio reviews from our dear listeners. Send us your 30-second audio review to reviews@truestory.fm. Once you watch the film, you just might end up on the show. You got to get them in quick, though. We generally are recording about 2 weeks in advance, so make sure you're watching those movies and then sending those reviews in with time for us to get it on the show. Again, it's reviews@truestory.fm.
And if you're wondering where you can see what movies we're talking about in the coming weeks for the rest of the season, find our entire series rundown on our Letterboxd HQ page. While you're there, sign up for a pro or patron membership with the discount code NEXTREEL, or just visit thenextreel.com/letterboxd, and you'll be able to get 20% off. This works for renewals as well.
If you're looking for ways to support the show, it is a new year, and maybe one of your resolutions is to kind of help these independent podcasts out. Well, we'd love it if you'd consider becoming a member. We are. You can just go to our website, thenextreel.com. We use Patreon's Memberful platform, so it's built right into our own site. Just go to thenextreel.com and click on the membership link, and you can learn more.
Members get early access to every episode. They also get so many bonus episodes. There's just a lot of bonus episodes. Plus, we do a member bonus episode that fills a gap from one of our series, and our series-long retake episode where we summarize, talk about, hash out the series that we have just finished. And don't forget the monthly Flick Chart re-ranking episode, where we go head-to-head and discover repeatedly how much of a cheater Andy is, thanks to internet delay.
Pete likes to call me out, but I like to say I'm the gentleman of the group. I don't call him out when he's doing his cheating. I just shake my head.
I don't cheat. That's because I don't cheat, because you have nothing. You have nothing. You have nothing.
He wishes. Anyway, we have all these great things. And, to become a member, as I said, just go to truestory.fm/TNR membership. The most it'll cost you is $5 per month or $55 per year.
All right, Andy, let's talk about The Weight of the Water. How heavy is it?
There aren't enough movies about the attributes of water. We have the weight of water and we have the shape of water.
Shape of water, yes.
What else?
Yeah.
I mean, are we missing, what's the taste of water?
The taste of water, the smell of water, the scent of water. That is a absolute lock for a Nancy Meyers movie, the scent of water.
Yeah. Who would do the taste of water? I feel like that's Pedro Almodovar. I don't know why.
That's true. That's right. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Then we have the color of water.
The color of water. Well, that's an Oprah Winfrey production for sure.
Tyler Perry's The Color of Water.
Tyler Perry's The Color of Water, starring and produced by Oprah Winfrey. Yeah. And,
I love
and
this.
Of course, Mahershala Ali will be in it twice.
That's right. I think we need to talk to these people and get the water attributes franchise off the ground.
Blots in the chat room. The sound of water, but it's just ASMR. You can already find that on YouTube.
Yeah, that's right.
The touch of water. That's right. The touch of water. Oh, God. Yeah. So this movie has water, takes place on an island. They're all going to... I feel like we need to sort of summarize what's going on in the movie.
Yeah,
because nobody's going to watch it.
There's two parts to the movie. The present day part of we should say, it is based on a book that was generally rated fairly high. It was a very popular book, that came out.
Did you read it?
I didn't.
Did you check it out?
By Anita Shreve.
Anita Shreve.
Yeah, it came out in 1997. There's a present day story about Jean Janes. She's a magazine photographer working on a photo essay about some real murders. These are, in fact, real murders that happened in 1873 on Smutty Nose Island, everybody's favorite stop on their way to New Hampshire. But anyway, Jean and her husband are going to the island to do some research. And to get there, her husband's brother happens to have a boat. So he's the one who's taking them over to the island to do this research. And he brings along his girlfriend, Adeline, who may or may not have had an affair or is even having an affair with Jean's husband, Thomas. Very mysterious. So there's a lot of like relationship drama going on in the present day. But we have a lot of flashbacks because as Jean is doing this research on Smutty Nose Island, everybody's favorite stop on their way to New Hampshire, she's finding more material about it. Basically, it was 3 sisters were attacked. 2 of them were killed. 1 of them survived by hiding in a sea cave until dawn. It was 2 sisters and a sister-in-law. And the one woman who survived says it was that German Louis Wagner who was staying at our house. He done it. And so he gets tried and hanged, and that's kind of the end of it. But as Jean is doing this research, she starts thinking, there's a lot of evidence that maybe he didn't do it. And maybe it was one of the maybe it was the survivor. Maybe she's the one who actually did it. And that's kind of the story. We get this parallel journey of 2 sets of relationships in time, and kind of like building to their kind of culminating climaxes as we as kind of the tensions of the relationships peak. That's really kind of where it goes. So yeah, I don't know, what'd you think?
God, this is such a painful watch for me. It was so not worth the wait and the trouble of actually securing the movie. First, I don't think the split narrative works at all. Like, I found myself just stay in the present and make a research movie. And if you need to do little flashbacks, fine. But the weight that they put on what amounted to me effectively like, let's go like a college production of a period film. It was just, I just couldn't take it seriously, any of it, even the murder parts. I just couldn't take it seriously. It felt like I was watching something that was lampooning itself. I did not care for any of the period stuff. Not even a little bit. I was just looking at my watch. I was looking at my phone, like whatever I could do to get out of the back in timey stuff. I think this movie needed to pick a lane. If it was going to be a back in timey movie, let's make a back in timey movie and not jump back and forth. The whole there's chocolate in my peanut butter kind of angle of merging these 2 stories did not work. All the way to the very end when it was forehead slappingly silly when at the climax of the movie, when the 2 women, cross time underwater. And if I had cared at all,
it was because of the weight of the water.
Oh, it was so heavy. It was the pressure of water allows them to transcend time. How stupid is that? It was stupid.
The book was celebrated, I think, because of the way that Anita found to connect these 2 stories and to find this sense of this tension between the 2, the unspoken emotions coming up on both sides, and how all of that kind of climaxes, peaks, And I just felt like the film had no surprise, there was nothing in it that was engaging, and it was very peculiar because, I like Kathryn Bigelow a lot. We've talked about a lot of her films over the seasons on this podcast, and so I was, it was one of those things that as I'm watching our protagonist, Jean Janes, played by Catherine McCormack, talking about this case that had happened on Smutty Nose Island, everybody's favorite stop on their way to New Hampshire. She's like, I don't think that he did it. I don't think that this Lewis person did it. I think it was one of the girls. And it's like, okay, well, duh. And now there's no mystery to the story because it's like, everybody's like, oh, Lewis did it. And it's like, well, it's a really boring story if Lewis did it. So sure, it was the sister. And okay, there's an interesting element about this backstory that Marin had about having kind of had an incestuous relationship with her brother, who eventually comes with his new wife, and nobody's talking about it. But that's one of the reasons that this character kind of, she's so upset and broken about kind of everything that she ends up killing her sister and her sister-in-law. It's kind of interesting. It's not carried off in a way where I ever felt there was any surprise at all. And that was what was really, for me, surprising, because I'm like, this is Kathryn Bigelow. This is something that I would expect some sense of some mystery. But it's just like, once Gene put it out there, it's like, okay, well, now we just have to wait for this to happen. And then intercutting it between the present day story, which I definitely found to be a complete snooze, because it's just like, God, Elizabeth Hurley, she's gorgeous, but could she play any sluttier? And it's like,
she's a caricature from frame one.
I know. And Gene is just like watching, like, and I'm like, geez. I mean, it was a real surprise to me that the film just was so on the nose with everything, that like there was no engagement and no surprise at all. And, when we get to the big climax in the water, I'm just like, okay, well, I don't really care if anybody dies here, whatever. The whole boat could go down and I just wouldn't care,
And it's funny, like Sarah Polley in the old timey stuff. I really like Sarah Polley in general. Like I think she actually has a strong bent for playing like victimized characters, wounded characters, and so I find her enormously charismatic. Why in this movie is she cardboard? This is story and direction to me. I think that's where this goes, because we absolutely have evidence that people in this movie are extraordinary performers. I think they're extraordinary performers, and they come together and make wood. It was just wood. I found the big climax in the old timey thing, right? The big reveal that the older sister has discovered the two younger sisters lying in bed together. And there was like a hint of weirdness. Of course, there was the discovery that she had lain with her brother, which was like, I don't know. It felt like it should have been a bigger part of the story than it was. Felt like it was sort of relegated to the dark corner of the old timey storyline, and maybe the main storyline people weren't talking about what was actually going on in the old timey days enough. But when it all exploded in the third act and the big murder scene happened, I thought, what really? Would they really resort to this kind of mechanical violence? It was like such an unearned scene, when Polly stands up in bed and goes after her sister with the chair. The look on her face was animatronic. She was an animatronic robot. She was a robot person. That's what Kathryn Bigelow did. She made Sarah Polley into a robot person.
Yeah, it was a peculiar turn, because it's like, okay, there's I guess the story that they're playing with is, she is one of those people. There's something that's a little broken in her, because she clearly doesn't see anything wrong with sleeping with her brother. But then all of a sudden, to go from like, she's the one who's kind of the embarrassment in the family, and she's kind of carrying that shame and forced into this marriage because of all of that. But then all of a sudden in this moment, to just like, switch is flipped. Now I'm going to, hit you with the chair. Now I'm going to get the axe. Yeah. Now I'm going to drive it into your head, and like all the stuff.
Now I'm Murder Bride.
Yeah, it's like,
right, the Murder Bride of Smutty Nose.
Smutty Nose, everybody's favorite stump on their way to New Hampshire. It was a baffling film, and I was so surprised that it like, I don't know. I found it clunky from the get-go, like nothing about it. And it is so frustrating, because these characters, I mean, Sarah Polley, she is great. Sean Penn, I generally always enjoy Sean Penn, and Josh Lucas is fun to watch. Catherine McCormick, she's not in as much that I've seen, but when I do see her, I like her. And Elizabeth Hurley, I just generally think of as kind of just more of a fun actress. When I see her in things, she just doesn't act a whole lot. Usually my brain just goes to, the days when she was with Hugh Grant. And so, I don't know, it's one of those things where, like everything about it I never remember how to say his name. Ciarán Hinds? Ciarán? Is that how you say it?
I think so. And I was wondering that too. I was hoping you would get it right.
I don't know.
Ciarán.
Yeah.
But,
and he's like right now getting major award buzz for his performance in Belfast. And so I know he is a great performer. Like he's done some amazing films. And then there's this.
You want to go see weird old Richard Donat? Go watch Haven. Don't watch this movie. He was in this movie as like the barrister and didn't care for it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, are we done? This movie weirdly comes out between Strange Days and K-19, The Widowmaker. So it was 5 years after Strange Days and 2 years before The Widowmaker.
And she had written Undertow shortly after Strange Days. So that was a project that she had worked on. It wasn't a directorial thing, but there was another project between Strange Days and this.
Do you know how she ended up with this movie?
I don't. This is one of those where I was kind of like hoping I could find more in like her bio or something about like how this landed in her lap. I don't know if she had read the book and wanted to get it made. Wikipedia is very light on information from for her. It really has next to nothing. So I don't know. I wish that I had found more information about her connection to it. And maybe it's one of those things where because it was not received well, she just doesn't talk about it much anymore.
Yeah, weird. Well, what did you think of the cinematography? Adrian Biddle is behind the camera, and this is a thing that had me. It teased me from the jump because I actually find the modern stuff on the boat. I in the early pieces of the movie, I actually found it quite lovely. I really liked the way it was shot early on, and I just don't think the story lived up to what was possible. There were some also really interesting ways they did, in terms of if you buy into the jumping back and forth with time thing. I think the mechanic they used in editing, between editing and camera, to actually move us back and forth through time and insinuate, sometimes way too heavy-handedly, but at least insinuate that they were going to try and merge these stories at some point. So mechanically, I found there were some things to appreciate in the way it was shot. What did you think?
I like the way it was shot. I like the kind of the separation in the different tones between the two stories, just to kind of give us that nice sense. Everything kind of has that. It's not quite sepia sort of look for the story in the past, but it does have kind of a more muted tone to it. It feels a little older world, I guess. And so I guess it wasn't a surprising delineation that they chose to go with across these two times, but I thought it was done effectively. And, Biddle, I think, is a fantastic cinematographer who generally is doing quality work like this. And I will say, all of the water work that we had, like when they're on their boat, especially when they're in the storm, I found to be incredibly effective. I mean, there are movies where I'm watching scenes with boats and I'm like, it feels like we're on a tank. It just doesn't feel like we're out in the environment. It doesn't quite feel as real and threatening. And I know, probably from her former relationship with James Cameron, that they filmed all the stuff down in the tank studio that Fox had built for Titanic down in Mexico, and they filmed all the water stuff down there, and that may be why it looked so good. Like, I was just really impressed with all of the storm sequences. I'm just like, it works exceptionally well here. So and that's also Biddle shooting all that, yeah.
And especially at the end in the final big storm sequence, I thought was pretty harrowing. There were some again forehead slapping moments of like, don't leave the wheel. Of course she's going to leave the wheel. Of course she's going to leave the wheel. The whole cross of the assassination bit was just puzzling. I did not understand why suddenly the jealousy had so haunted her that she was possessed to pull the rope and knock, Hurley overboard. That is silly. But the threat that the water posed, especially when Sean Penn was in the water, as he's out in that, there's like this weird, tumultuous, like maw of foaming, frothing water out just out outside of the range of the rope and the rescue buoy. I thought that was really threatening, and I think it looked good, and it was shot well, and the storm worked for me. So, in that regard, there was some legitimate threat.
Yeah.
We can't not mention that, speaking of things that aren't surprises, they took the brooding poet Sean Penn and drowned him. Like, speaking of things, you didn't have to see the movie to know that brooding poet Sean Penn would end up in the drink.
Well, and that was something that just, like, for me, it made no sense, right? Adeline gets knocked into the water, and he goes diving after her, and his brother throws the lifesaver, and Sean Penn grabs it and swims to her so that he can save her. But then he lets go of it so that she can get saved. It's like, what? Just hold on to it also. Like, you both can hold on to it. Why do you let go?
You're in water. Smiling Josh Lucas can pull you both to the boat. He really can. He's hunky and strong. And that smile carries a lot of the weight of water. So much smiling.
Yeah. I mean, I will say the way that the water, I don't know. There's a parallel with kind of the turbulence of the water that pairs with the emotional turbulence in the film. So, there are things like that I like how Bigelow kind of finds that and develops all that water at the end. And I mean, that all works nicely. I also like, going back to the kind of the cinematography, but like all of the shots of the things that are falling under the water, just kind of like you get through the title sequence, and then periodically as Jean is dreaming, like the letters underwater or a floating dress underwater. Like there's some beautiful photography throughout. And even when Sean Penn's under or when Jean is under and she sees the people, like the way that plays under there is really nice. Like there is some nice, just beautifully crafted and lit moments. It's just unfortunate that the movie around it isn't that great, but it does look good.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. It looks good, and it lives up to Biddle's experience behind the camera and all the wonderful movies that he's done. And he has done other movies that don't live up to his skill behind the camera. This is not the only one. Yeah. We lost him in 2005. The last film that he did was V for Vendetta.
Oh, interesting.
So speaking of an interesting looking film.
And speaking of the look of the film, and this is something I think that, I don't know if we talk about too much in Bigelow's films, but she works really well with her production design team. And, her production designer for this film was Carl, I don't know how I'm going to say it, Juliuson. It's like a double accented name. I felt like when we were back in time, the actors I sometimes struggled with, but just like the look of the town, the things in the houses, for the most part, like it just felt old world. And so, like, I don't know, I really enjoyed seeing those things. And I like the way that was crafted. Like when you see Marin and her sisters just doing like the housework and everything else, I'm just like, it felt like real. Like I enjoyed those elements in it,
Yeah, I can agree with that. I agree with that. Like, I think the problem that I have is with the back in time stuff is twofold. First, I've already expressed I don't like it in this movie. Second, this is not my favorite kind of period exploration, right? Like, I don't love this part in history, Scandinavian history. Like it just doesn't. It's not good for me. It takes a I can't think of a single movie that takes place in this period that I don't struggle to maintain attention.
Yeah, you really struggled with The Emigrants, didn't you?
I did. I continue. I am still actively struggling with The Emigrants. I think it's still playing somewhere in my house. So I struggle with it already. To that end, I think, for giving us the, celebrating the period of Smutty Nose, everyone's favorite destination on the way to New Hampshire. I think that it's fine. It's fine. My favorite part of the production design was the puppy. That puppy was adorable. And I think they actually aged the puppy between cuts to demonstrate the passing of time that it takes her sister to arrive by ship. Which I thought was a really nice nod. I'm looking at that dog. I'm saying, that dog just aged. Nice job, movie. Really great job, movie.
Yeah, it is an interesting thing. And, I didn't realize this, but somebody has pointed out that there is this unofficial water trilogy with Kathryn Bigelow. Point Break, this film, and K-19 Widowmaker. And I guess I'd have to look at that a little bit more, but it's all about water. The whole idea this article I found, water as a symbol, motif, and space. I think there's something interesting with that. I guess I'd really have to look at those three films and think about it more. Because I don't know. I guess I didn't think of that as any form of a connection. And honestly, I can't remember much about K-19 Widowmaker. So I'd have to just watch that movie again to really figure that one out. But it is interesting, though, that you think about that. There is something with Bigelow and these stories about water and, I don't know, just people living in it and surviving as they hang out in it and stuff. I don't know. Did you get anything about that?
Check me on this. Because obviously, I think this is actually a piece that I struggle with, is that I didn't see... God, she's absolutely tricked us, because all I want to say is I didn't see the weight of the water impact the two parts of the story equally. Is that a fair statement? Yes.
Because it seems to impact the second story more than the story in 1873.
Yes. And I feel like what the movie was trying to do in terms of building a parallel structure and titling the movie the way it does, I would expect water to play a larger role than just setting in both parts. And in the 1873 part of the film, water is just a setting.
It's not even a setting.
So much.
It's just they're surrounded by it.
It's a background. It's like they're on an island, so water is also present, right? Like there's no connection to water beyond the fact that there are boats on it, and sometimes they're on the boats, and they use boats to do transition cuts to across time.
Yeah, Marin never gets on a boat. Marin is never.
No, she never gets on a boat. No, she's never on a boat. She sends people off on boats. She welcomes people from boats.
Yeah, Lewis doesn't even go on a boat. I mean, he comes to their land, and then he has what does he have? Some illness, and he can't get out of bed, and so she basically has to take care of him. It's just like
rheumatism. That was the best come on ever. My wife was not around, but I immediately noted in my come on journal, my rheumatism requires that you massage my joints. Would that be okay with you? My come on journal now has exactly one line in it. I can't wait to try it.
Well, I guarantee you're going to be crossing that one out right as soon as you've tried it. So much for that come on journal.
Yeah. Anyhow, there are boats. I thought he did like the last one where the men said, "We're just going out for our chores. Well, you're never going to beat this wind." And then they were on a boat, and then suddenly she said, "Well, they're never going to beat the wind. They'll be stranded wherever they end up." I thought he was on the boat with them. No, he wasn't. Obviously, that was the brother.
The brother
and her husband.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I don't think he was ever on a boat.
No, because he had he was like in bed the whole time.
He had rheumatism.
Like I don't know. Right. Well, because didn't he get a job or something? Because he was like, that was the whole thing. Because he wasn't there when she turns into Bloody Mary and starts hatcheting everybody. I don't actually remember where he was. I think that, but he couldn't have been at work because then people said, "Oh no, he was with me." I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the actual story. So this is an actual story. March 6, 1873, Karen and Annette Christensen were strangled, and one was struck with a hatchet. Marin had escaped and hid in a place that's now called Marin's Rock. And she said that Louis Wagner was the killer. He was tried, convicted, and hanged. What's interesting, and they didn't depict in the film, is that he fled the island and he was hunted down. He was arrested in Boston, extradited back to Portsmouth, and then 10,000 angry townspeople waited for him at the train station and shouted him all the way to the police station, chanting, "Lynch him! Kill him!" Wow.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me that the town of Smutty Nose has 10,000 people in it?
No, this was in Portsmouth where he was tried.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, thank goodness. I missed that part.
I don't think Smutty Nose Island
could even hold 10,000 people.
No. And then once he was convicted and put in jail, he was brought to Alfred, Maine. He was brought to Alfred, Maine for trial. After he was condemned to death, he actually broke out of jail, escaped to New Hampshire, and then was recaptured and brought to the gallows, where he was hanged. Like, I feel like there's so much more interesting stuff with him and his story. And this is a person who has rheumatism and is lying in bed. Oh, my joint. Come massage my joint. Like, really? Yeah, it sounds like you can do quite a bit, actually. Anyway.
See, this is a perspective thing. We just fixed the movie. You can get rid of the jumping back and forth thing, or maybe if you really have to have the jumping back and forth thing, you really feel like you have to have Kathryn McCormick. She's already signed on the line. You bookend the story and have her doing her little research in the beginning and have her learn her lessons at the end. Fine. It's not great, but it's there.
And then,
but then tell the story of this guy and his journey, right? Tell the Jean Valjean story, right? That's what I want. I want to know about the wrongly convicted and his efforts to free himself that ultimately end in sorrow and death. And this story was bonkers, and it never tied together. How did you feel about Josh Lucas and Sean Penn as brothers? Did you buy it?
Yeah, I thought I didn't have any issue with them. Like, I actually enjoyed the cast in general across the board. I just didn't think they were given anything good to work with. But I mean, I thought they played kind of the brother angle well. Like, I enjoyed their kind of playfulness and everything. Gosh, I just like, I guess the only person I struggled with in the casting was Elizabeth Hurley, because she's gorgeous. But then when she's all of a sudden like reciting his poetry back to him and stuff, I'm like, I don't know if I'm buying this. Like, especially like while she's laying there, sunbathing topless. It's just like,
God.
Is this, I don't know if I'm buying this anymore. It's just like, it went all weird, and I'm like, I just can't buy her as this person who's like so taken by his poetry. Like, I struggled with some of those elements.
Oh God, you're right. She was such a fangirl over his poetry. Not in a million years did I buy that angle. I found it difficult to buy that he was a poet. Like, what a silly profession to give him in this context of this boat. It just brought the whole mood of the present tense of the movie to a screeching halt every time they cut back after about the halfway point of the film. Especially their conversation. So the Kathryn McCormick and Elizabeth Hurley have this conversation in the below decks, and McCormick is so moved to jealousy that she has to out her husband, Sean Penn, as having killed a girl. He killed a girl. Why? Where did that conversation even come from? Nonsense. Did not believe it one single bit that is her motive, that she was so swollen with jealousy and rage, seething under the surface, that she felt like she needed to have that conversation. Just, there are no paths that led to that table for me.
But again, it just goes to like, and I'd really have to read the book to figure out, like, did the book make more sense? because as the film, like as we're jumping back and forth in time between these two storylines, I'm just like, I just don't like, where's the, I mean, I get that there's kind of this emotional connection between people having difficult times with their relationships, but I didn't feel like there was a lot of logic in the connections. And when Jean was having like the dreams and having these moments and stuff, it's just like, how is that making sense in the way that we're finding the connection and building these two stories successfully, so that when we get to that climax where both stories are climaxing at the same time, like I'm right there with kind of the way that it's unfolding. Like it never does any of that. And it was frustrating from the get-go.
Yeah, it was a tough watch.
Yeah. That's too bad.
I got nothing else, man. I got nothing else.
Like I said, I liked the cast. I thought they did a good job. But yeah, there were just a lot of these elements that just didn't play well. Oh, yeah. And also, did you read it where, because I sure did, where this in the story in the past, where Marin's husband and her brother, like as the trial was going on, and she was saying that, oh yes, Wagner is the one who did all of this. As all of that is coming out, it really makes it seem like her brother and her husband completely knew that she's the one who did it, but they weren't going to say anything. But the way that their faces looked, like we would keep cutting to shots of them during the trial and stuff, it just felt like, are they really implying that these two men know that she did it, but they're just going to let it go because I don't know, because it's their wife/sister, because it's a woman?
Yeah, because that's the island culture. Like that protect the island kind of a thing. Like it's the same thing that like as it's cut together, as he is being hanged, she is in the office saying, we need to.
Oh, that's right. She admits it.
I need to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
She admits the whole thing, and they bury it. And that is,
yeah, they're like, oh yeah, we gotta. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Nod, wink, wink.
Yeah, we can't let this out. We're going to have to just hide this away. And that was a strange element also, because it really makes it seem like, which makes no sense, the Jean, of all people, this magazine photographer working on a photo essay, is the one person who stumbles across this evidence after it's been sitting there for over a century. But she's the first person to look at it. She finds it and has all the puzzle pieces, and then of course the storm happens and all of the evidence gets washed away with the storm.
Yeah,
is that how it happened? Because I know she's like, know. Oh, this is the because they're like, this looks like the original. Oh yeah, I kind of borrowed it from them. Like she goes through that whole thing, which I'm just like, that seems odd. That whole thing, it makes me angry. Like the more I think about that whole thing is so stupid. It's like she takes the originals out onto the boat. The wind is blowing them around. They're all trying to rescue them. And then the storm destroys it all anyway. But that's the actual evidence. Like the whole thing. It's just like, what? Are you kidding me? And nobody has looked at this in over 100 years.
Right. It's just ridiculous.
That really
it's just ridiculous.
Makes me mad now. The more I think about that.
It does. And so, all of this is somehow fueling, again, don't get me started on what they did to Kathryn McCormick's character and her seething jealousy that is supposedly roils up from beneath as a result of the weight of the water and the weight of history, as she is somehow spiritually connected to murderous Marin. And leading to, of course, the tawdry, almost sex scene in the library, which I thought was so dumb. Yeah. Again, a totally unearned opportunity for Sean Penn to be upset because he isn't getting any in the library. Like, so brooding. It was just, yeah. I feel like this movie has quickly become a punchline. It's unfortunate.
It's frustrating.
And again, we should say, movies are hard. Movies are so hard. I absolutely get it, and I want that out there. And also, again, can't go without saying, I've done stuff that isn't great either. So it's okay to have some stinkers in our catalog.
That's right. Absolutely. And it's frustrating because, Kathryn Bigelow is a director that we really love, and I mean, I even went back and rewatched Strange Days because, we were pretty brutal when we did our show about that movie. And I rewatched it and I found, I'm like, why am I being so hard on this movie? It actually is a really enjoyable movie. And so I brought my ranking of that one back up. And I mean, there are still a few movies left that we haven't talked about. Like, I think we still need to track down The Loveless, Blue Steel, and K-19. And then I think we will have kind of completed all of the films that she's directed on the podcast. And largely, I really enjoy her work. Like, I find that she does a lot of really fun stuff. So it's interesting. And I would love to know, like, is this just a director for hire job that they kind of gave to her? Is this a passion project of hers where she found this book and it's just like, I absolutely have to tell this story? Like, what was the story behind her connecting with this and bringing it to the screen? Because it's a bit of a surprise to me that this is kind of what we ended up getting here.
It really is. So, okay.
All right.
That's the movie.
All right. Well, we will be right back. But first, our credits.
The next reel is a production of True Story FM. Engineering by Andy Nelson. Music by Ancori and Ramon, Oriol Novella, and Eli Catlin. Andy usually finds all the stats for the awards and numbers at the-numbers.com, boxofficemojo.com, imdb.com, and wikipedia.org. Find the show at truestory.fm. If your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show.
Pete, I didn't tell you, or we didn't mention this earlier, and I haven't researched it to be able to verify it as an actual fact, but especially because this comes from IMDb trivia, which is, a step below Wikipedia, which is, a step below actual research. But somebody did point this out. This story is apparently the reason that there is no death penalty in the state of Maine, because after the execution, they realized, the other woman could have actually been the killer. And so apparently that's the thing.
Oh my God. But it's a story, not the movie. Right.
No, the actual murder, the actual 1873, not the movie. Yeah, the movie didn't come out and go, holy cow,
have
we had this wrong all this time? We got to get rid of
death penalty. Thank you, K. Biggs. All right. Did we have any awards?
Surprisingly, yes. The movie did have one win, one other nomination at the Film by the Sea International Film Festival. Kathryn Bigelow won the Film and Literature Award. I don't even know who she was nominated against, but there you go. Win one for the team, I guess, there. And then at the San Sebastian International Film Festival, Kathryn Bigelow was nominated for the Golden Seashell, but she lost to the film The Ruination of Men.
All right.
Not festivals that you hear about too much.
Nope, it is not. How about at the box office? Did she make any money?
This was not a good one for Bigelow. The film cost $16 million to make, which is $22.7 million in today's dollars. The movie premiered at Toronto International Film Festival September 9th, 2000, but it actually didn't get released theatrically until July 31st, 2002. That was over in France, and then November 1st, 2002, domestically, opposite I Spy and The Santa Claus 2. The film did no business anywhere, opening in 58th place here and only earning $109,000 domestically and $212,000 internationally for a total gross of $456,000 in today's dollars. That lands the film with an adjusted loss per finished minute of $197,000. Not a good spot on our chart for Bigelow.
Wow.
Yeah, that would hurt.
Yeah, that's a loss. And then to follow that up with The Widowmaker.
But was it a moneymaker? That's the thing.
That is the question.
Yes.
That's the question. All right. Do you remember what you saw that weekend?
It wasn't any of those three films.
It wasn't that hit.
I didn't see I Spy. I didn't see the Santa Claus.
Owen Wilson, Eddie Murphy. Owen Wilson. There is something in Owen Wilson that Owen Wilson and Josh Lucas were in movies opposite one another. I find some subversively satisfying because I kind of can see them as the same person.
That's interesting,
right? An alternate, like Owen Wilson is alternate universe.
That
Josh
is
Lucas.
too funny. I'm trying to think like what else, what I would have seen. It had to be something that had come out before or after. Like Jonathan Demme's The Truth About Charlie came out the weekend before. I know I saw that in the theater. Frida, I saw in the theater. The Ring remake, I saw that in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
After this, Femme Fatale, Brian De Palma's film, I saw 8 Mile,
mm-hmm.
Far From Heaven, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. So, I mean, there were a lot of films.
Really, what you're saying is you saw all the movies
I saw
before
everything.
you would have even begun to see this one.
Die Another Day. Yeah, there were a lot of films that came out in this window that I would have seen instead of this one. Because I remember seeing the trailer, and the trailer just did nothing for me.
Yeah, well, now we know why.
Now we know why.
What excites me about what comes next, Andy, is that I feel like I'm going to let the cat out of the bag here. I feel like we're gonna toss to the trailer for next week's movie right now, and I'm calling it the Next Reel Journalism Series Apology Tour film.
Because it's a film about journalists?
It's a film that's actually about journalists, and I'm going to go ahead and give you your answer for this segment next week. I enjoyed the hell out of it.
Well, we're going to talk about it next week because there's something to be said about that film also about not actually following journalists getting stories. Like, that's not what that film is about. So it's an interesting...
It's not about them being good at it at all.
Yeah. It's an interesting series that we've done because the journalists, I don't know. I think if we went back to Salvador, in our Oliver Stone series, that might be a film that would fit in this series better than any of the films that we're talking about.
Yes, you're right. That's accurate. Anyway, here's the trailer.
Here's the trailer
for Between the Lines.
Is this going to take long? I have a meeting in 5 minutes.
I'll get down to specific figures then.
Specific figures. For what?
For what? For my raise. I wouldn't accept his first offer because he wouldn't go for the paid vacation.
You have a story for me this week? Have I ever missed the deadline?
Constantly.
You've been picking up a paycheck for years. You don't do a damn thing.
You don't think that's work?
Let me tell you what I got for you. How did you get into stripping?
The questions you were asking. This isn't exactly Watergate, you know.
If we're gonna fight, can I at least get dressed? I have an important announcement to make.
You're going to do it. You're going to sell the paper.
Hey, you really gonna quit the main line?
Why stick around?
Okay, why does anybody get up in the morning? You don't.
I don't.
I think we should get rid of him.
That's insane. The whole office is going to get up and walk out.
Roy Walsh buys this paper, I'm walking.
Me too. Me too.
Me too. Well, that's that. We had some good times here, didn't we? We really shook things up.
Everybody in the unemployment line. I had you going there for a second, didn't I?
All right, Andy, it's letterbox time.
Letterbox time.
Oh, dear. Okay. Well, we didn't like the movie very much. How far down does that put you?
This is one of those films where it's like, do I rate it on just my general displeasure with everything in it? Or do I say, you know what? The production design, the casting, like there were elements that worked. I think when I do my ratings, usually it's not just because of those particular elements. It's kind of the whole thing as a single entity. And because the story was just such a misfire across the board, gosh, do I want to go to like the lowest and give it a half star?
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
If you land there, I would not have seen that coming. That would be a surprise.
Well, okay. I'll give it 1. I'm going to give it 1 star. Because I did enjoy some of the elements in the film. I wasn't bored. It wasn't a boring movie at all. Like, it was actually entertaining in a pretty boring, terrible way.
It was that might be our most violent disagreement in this conversation. It was a boring movie. It was a boring.
No, see, I wasn't bored.
Most of it was a boring movie.
That's interesting because even in those moments where, like, I knew everything, like the story was just so obvious, like nothing was a surprise in this movie, I still was just like, it's kind of like, watching something burn. And so I don't know. I found it to be interesting in that sort of way.
It's like somebody putting a golf ball on a lathe. Like, you're just waiting for it to explode.
Yeah.
I feel like I have used words like wooden and cardboard and lifeless in this conversation. I cannot in good conscience end this in my catalog as on the record as anything above a half star. I'm the one who's supposed to be the curmudgeon. You are the spirit of love and innocence on this show. And so I think I have to end up below you. I have to. It's my duty.
No, I'm not going to let you. I'm going to go to half star because that's where I originally wanted to go, and you made me feel guilty about it, and so I gave it an extra half star.
I was already a half star. It was in my notes. It was a half star. Before
I was a half star too,
you
and
even
then you
started
guilted
talking.
me into bringing it up. I'm not bringing it up for this movie. I'm back to a half star.
All right, fine. Half star it is.
That's where we
But
sit.
are you going to give it a heart? Oh man.
One of the most delicious letterboxed tools is that heart, especially in conversations like this. Because, no.
People underplay the heart. People underestimate the power of the heart, I think.
They do. Yes, they do. They do.
What did you think about? We want to know. Hop into the Show Talk channel on Discord, and we'll be talking about this movie this week.
I can't wait for your stories about how you tracked it down. Very much looking forward to them. All right. Well, when the movie ends,
our conversation begins. Letterboxd giveth, Andrew.
As Letterboxd always doeth.
I started looking for 5-star reviews. I tried, and there aren't any. So we ended up, what did we end up with? We ended up with the good, weirdly 2-star review by David Sims. And this one's dated the 22nd of September, 2017. David says, 2 stars. Why you do this, Kathryn? Which is good, but it's actually the setup for another review.
That's right. It's the payoff is right here by Emma Stefanski, who has this to say: David Sims owes me $2.99.
Oh God, I wish this had cost me only $2.99. In time alone, this movie cost me hundreds of dollars. This is Cody Lunsford, 1.5 stars. This movie is actually impossible to pay attention to. Cody actually reflects my experience entirely in this one. It was rough.
Yeah.
It was rough. All right.
It's a rough one.
Well, thanks, Letterboxd. Andy, it's hard to believe we've been having weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
Oh, you're telling me. Producing this show week after week is so much fun, but it does require a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
The Originals page at thenextreel.com/originals has links to purchase the source material behind our adapted film discussions. Your purchases there help support the show at no extra cost.
For the entirety of season 11, we featured films directed by women.
The only exceptions were some of our member bonus episodes.
We talked about The Lure for our horror debuts series, which is a very loose adaptation of The Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen.
Definitely miles from the Disney versions.
For our 10-year anniversary series, we covered We Need to Talk About Kevin, taken from the Lionel Shriver novel.
Man, that was brilliant.
And horrifying.
Yeah. The Journalist series included Merrily We Go to Hell and The Weight of Water, adapted from Anita Shreve's bestseller.
We filled some gaps in previous series with member bonus episodes on adaptations like Malcolm X, Mr. Blandings Builds His Dream House, Cactus Flower, Wild at Heart, Life Force, and The Blues Brothers.
Our John Hurt series looked at a trio of adaptations: Chilly Scenes of Winter from the novel by Anne Beatty, Awakenings based on Oliver Sacks' nonfiction book, and Rambling Rose adapted from the Calder Willingham novel.
2 films in our coming-of-age debuts series were adapted from books: The Virgin Suicides from Jeffrey Eugenides, and The Diary of a Teenage Girl, Phoebe Glockner's graphic novel.
We had Queen of Katwe for our sports series based on Tim Crothers' nonfiction book.
And Clueless kicked off our 90s comedy series, loosely adapted from Jane Austen's Emma.
It totally took place in the 90s, though. Find all of these books and more adaptations on our originals page at thenextreel.com/originals.
Start your next read from the movies we've covered. Visit thenextreel.com/originals today.